Hey YouTube, this is Pecktec, and today we're going to talk a little bit about overcrowding in your aquarium and around the context of a long-term aquascape. So let's talk for a second about long-term aquascape versus short-term aquascaping. So short-term aquascaping is in the beginning. So in the beginning, you've got a plan, you execute your plan, you put the rocks where you want and the driftwood where you want and the plants where you want, and then it's done, and you take a photograph and you share it, right? Well, months later, all the stuff you wanted is out the door, and the plants and the rocks and the wood have just kind of gone whichever way they need to go. Somehow the plants had a mind of their own and just kept growing and messed up all your plants. Or maybe it looks really great, or looks really beautiful, but then months later it's like, oh, it's a little less beautiful, a little more kind of cluttered. And then a month after that it's like, okay, this is starting to be a problem. And then a month after that you're like, okay, I really put this off too long. It's time to trim. That's where I was at. Actually, I have a couple of things to talk about today. First off, thank you so much for 50,000 subscribers. That's a great accomplishment that I've looked forward to seeing happen, and I'm glad it finally happened. Thank you so much for subscribing and checking it out. And if you haven't yet, please feel free to subscribe. I do this all the time, and I'd love to see you back. So today, like I said before, we're going to talk about overcrowding, specifically plant overcrowding. So I like that jungle look as much as the next person, but eventually it does become a problem. The plants will grow so thick that you cannot effectively like keep an aquascape going. It's going to shade out other plants. It'll kill stuff. It'll just choke it out, as well as just absorb a lot of nutrients and stuff that it doesn't need. So you may notice it looks a little bit different from the update. The update just recently. For that update, I just kind of cleaned the glass and shot it. And then I decided to go in for a deep dive on this one because I really needed to trim it out. It was starting to really get on my nerves. It was just so full. The Hydra 25 is an all-in-one aquarium. It's got the low iron glass. I got it from 7 Ports, and along with a lot of the substrate and the other things that I used to put this together. So if you'd like to see the setup for that, be sure to check it out. I'll have a link to it probably at the end of this video. So a lot of this video is going to be some B-roll of me maintaining this tank. I came to this tank the other day, and keep in mind that these two tanks were cleaned at the exact same time, right before Christmas, right before I did my last update. Was the last time I cleaned the glass and everything. So that's a good comparison of the two. It's like as far as how quickly this kind of fell out of hand. Now I think some of that is I've got way too much plant growth. Like I planted it very heavy initially, which is what they say to always do, because you want to you have lots of plants to kind of get that new tank going. The problem is too that months afterwards, if all those plants lived and did okay, then they grow out, and then pretty soon you're full. Like the tank's just full of plants, and that's kind of where I'd gotten to with this one. So I have this C-Chem equivalent magic eraser that I use to clean the glass on a lot of my tanks. You'll see me using like old credit cards and stuff like that too. I highly recommend if you're still using a metal scraper of any sort, consider those other options. They'll save you a lot of money in aquariums, because I really hate when the glass gets scratched, and I've scratched the glass so many times with those metal ones. So consider the plastic or these little magic erasers. Now, the brand magic eraser probably might not be appropriate. You need to make sure there's no detergent or anything like that. These are just the material itself. My local fish store sells little C-Chem ones by the counter, and I impulse buy them all the time while I'm getting other stuff because they're really handy to clean with. So one thing a lot of people don't think about with this stuff is I've got all these fish in here that eat algae. There's a lot of the fish that are in here, they're oriented towards like cleaning the surfaces of the plants and eating algae and stuff like that. But still a lot of the leaves and the glass and everything else is still getting covered in algae quite often. I mean, and pretty quickly. So part of what's going on is they simply have too much to do. So with all the extra leaves and all those extra plants in there, there's a lot of surfaces for the algae to form. So aside from like all the extra plants blocking out the lights, sucking up nutrients, and just making it difficult for the other plants to grow, they're also making more and more surfaces for algae to live on. So with all your algae eaters, especially your surface skimmers, you know, your snails and your plecos and all the algae eaters that kind of like suck around the surfaces of things, if there's less of those to do, then the ones that are there presumably will get more attention. So by cutting down the amount of plants that are in there, I can count on them spending some more time on the leaves that are left, because they got to. There's a lot of stuff that I pulled out. I pulled a lot of plants out of here. You only really need so much Anubias in a tank, and I had really kind of overdid it. I have a lot of Anubias just in general around the house, so when I set this tank up, it's the plant I had a lot of. And you can see why. I've still got a lot. A lot of these plants that I'm pulling out are pretty viable. Like they would be a lot of them have algae on them and stuff, but they could be okay. Like I've seen algae like this sort of eaten off of it by, you know, ravenous shrimp and stuff before. So it's can be difficult. Like I was wondering at first, am I going to throw all this Anubias away? But I ended up coming up with another solution I'll tell you about in a minute. I kind of just kept pulling Anubias out until I got to some hardscape. As I was pulling stuff out, I came across some rocks that I'd used to, I don't know if I used it to aquascape with or if I was using it mostly to hold down plants and or the wood here, but I ended up pulling those out. They're just kind of taking up space in there. That's space that a plant can be growing in. And a lot of surface area too. It doesn't really do much good to have dragonstone just kind of buried under all that stuff. I didn't even realize it was there. So they came out, and boy, that's a lot more water volume in there just from that. It's like a football's worth of water volume just in rocks that I found hidden under all this stuff. As I trimmed a lot of the plants, I tried to make it so I could see more and more of the driftwood that's in there. So I think it's really kind of a lovely piece. And I love the way it kind of wraps around there. So I worked the Anubias and the Java fern and all the different plants kind of back in there. And the Buse, there's a lot of Buse in here too. I worked it all back in here just in places to more accentuate the wood and make sure that I saw a fair amount of the branches and stuff coming out. And I like it a lot better now. All along the bottom here, when I initially planted this out, I used 4-leaf clover, which grew like crazy. It actually grew a lot faster, and it looked really neat for a long time. But then it just started getting kind of dingy. All the leaves had like algae all over them, and they were just kind of nasty. So I decided to start pulling it, and as I started pulling it, I ended up pulling almost all of it out. I still have some of that 4-leaf clover in here. It actually grew from one side of the tank all the way around to the other side, and then the part in the back, like from over here to over here in the back of the tank, is still there. So I kind of left that there just to see if it would make its way back through to the front. But pulling that out, and I left a few pieces in the front here also, but pulling most of that out really cleaned all of this up. It looks a lot better. It's a lot visually. It looks a lot cleaner. It doesn't have those little dirty leaves, all those little dirty little leaf feet from all the 4-leaf clover things. Actually, just kind of looking back in here, there's a few things that I need to go back in here and fix. Inevitably, things have kind of blown free and started to go float around in ways I didn't plan. But absolutely do not be scared to go into your jungle tank and trim it back once in a while. I would say even maybe once a year would be a pretty smart idea, just to kind of keep things in check. If you time it just right and you've got a fish club meeting or something like that going on, you could take those things to that fish club meeting and make a lot of new friends. I still have a sump going underneath the 210 with the lights on it, and I grow plants in there, so I dumped all my clippings just into the sump, and I'll go back through it later and see if something cool grows out of that. That's one neat thing about Anubias. If you don't have a place for it right away, you can kind of just dump it into dump it into a tank and it'll start growing. They do a lot better if you weight it down so that the leaves are facing up. Otherwise, you can get it growing in a kind of a weird way. But if you're short on time, you can dump it in a tank with some light and stuff, and it'll continue to live. All right, folks. Well, I hope you're having a good January. January's been kind of an interesting start for us. Right after New Year's, my daughter was contact traced and tested negative twice for COVID, and then had a positive test like the third day. So she had a positive test, and then we all just kind of went into lockdown. None of us had any symptoms though. Like she never really was felt any symptoms, and I didn't, and Holly didn't. But we've all been kind of locked up for the past several days. Of course, I'm working from home, so that's not really a big deal, and just kept on my schedule. Been working out a whole lot. I think it's something there might be something about turning 50 that makes you re-examine how healthy you are and how healthy you should be. So I'm moving towards a healthier tomorrow, and working out on a daily basis. So it'll be interesting to see how I do. This year I'm going to take a little bit different approach for my videos. It'll probably be a slow roll at the beginning of the year. My goal is only one video a month on this channel. I might make a few more videos on a couple of my other channels. I have a games channel and I have a drone channel I haven't done anything with in years, but I am still here. I am still making videos, albeit at maybe a little bit slower pace while I kind of readjust to life as it is now. But I'll be back soon with more videos. Until next time, follow your bliss. Keep a clean tank, and I'll see you soon. If you want to see the setup for this video, it's right there. If you want to see what the algorithm has decided is best for you, you can click right here. And of course, I'd love to see you again. Please subscribe. Bye-bye.